All right, welcome to today's class on Docusign 201 with KW Command. My name is Leah with Scott Leroy Marketing, and today's class will be covering more of the advanced tips and tricks in Docusign. So today's class is designed for agents who've been in Docusign before. Maybe you feel pretty comfortable in Docusign, and this would be on top of the Docusign 101 class. So if you're new to Docusign, instead you'll want to first attend the Docusign 101 class. And I'm going to put in the chat the most recent class for that. Okay, let me grab that video. It's just on my notes here. And I'll put that in the chat. So again, if you are new to Docusign,
if you're thinking of doing,
make sure you watch this tip or the Docusign 101 video in the chat first, as this Docusign 201 class will build on the 101 class. All right, guys, so the first thing that we need to do when starting a transaction in Command, as you probably know, is to log into KW Command. So you do not want to be creating your Docusign rooms from Docusign directly. You'll want to make sure that you're always starting your transaction from Command directly. So we're going to overview that process really quickly, just how that works on starting your transactions in Command with Docusign. So first things first, let's go ahead and log into Command. So I am logging into Command at agent.kw.com. You can see that at the top of my screen here. That's agent.kw.com. This is a Command login. So go ahead and put in your Command username and password if that does not log you in automatically. And that will take you right into Command. So real quick, let's double check that your Docusign account is linked to Command. Okay, so in order for Command and Docusign to work together, the two need to be linked. So if you can follow me just to review that real quick and double check your Docusign username, you can do that by clicking your name on the very top right of Command. And then settings from that drop down. Okay, so again, I clicked on my name on the top right of Command and then settings. And we just want to double check that Docusign is linked up properly. So you should see Docusign ideally near the top of your connected apps here. Okay, so this is showing you any apps that you currently have linked to Command. And of course, for today's class, we need to focus on Docusign. So ideally, your connected apps will be at the top. So you should see Docusign with that connected status near the top of your list. However, if you don't, feel free to go ahead and scroll down to find Docusign. I believe it's originally under productivity. And if it's not linked up, you can go ahead and click Connect Account on the right-hand side to link that to Command right away. If you have any issue linking up Docusign to Command, feel free to shoot us an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com. We're more than happy to help you with the process. It can be a little fickle linking Docusign to Command, as Command does not allow for you to use previously created Docusign accounts. So if you've had Docusign for years before you even came to KW, unfortunately, that would not be compatible with Command. The KW Docusign accounts do have to be created from the Command backend specifically. So if you have any issues with that, please just shoot us an email. We're more than happy to help. Again, that's support@scottleroymarketing.com. All right, so, and also just take a quick peek at what your Docusign username is. I know it doesn't show you the full email there, but hopefully that will give you an idea of which email you have linked to Docusign. All right, so we're going to quickly overview the process of starting your transactions in Command with Docusign. Because if you have any questions at all throughout the class, feel free to drop that in the Zoom chat, and I'll be answering those as we go along as I can here. So just let me know if you have questions. But before I start showing you guys, just overviewing quickly what the steps are to start a transaction in Command, let me go ahead and share the notes, because I do have these written down for you as well. So I'm putting the notes for today's class in the chat. If you attended the Docusign 101 class last week, this would be the same notes. So If you want to pull that open, I'm going to pull it open on my screen just so you guys can see what it looks like. So first of all, the newest Docusign 101 classes and 201 will be at the top. So I'll be updating today's class if you need to leave for any reason during today's class. If you just keep these Docusign notes open on your computer or even bookmark them. So you can bookmark these notes by clicking the star icon usually on your URL bar. And that will save it so you can come back and grab the newest Docusign 201 class if you want to watch this class again recorded or you need to leave early. All right, so just to overview what I sent you guys, I do have written notes and also quick tip videos. These are 10-minute tip videos to expand on today's class. So these written notes, what I'm going to focus on first are these steps to do a transaction in Command, because I'm just going to briefly overview with you guys the steps to starting your transaction. This is heavily gone over in the Docusign 101 class. So again, if starting transactions are very new for you, I would definitely recommend starting with that Docusign 101 class. I'll share this in the chat as well. It's the first link on the notes I sent you guys, but let me go ahead and send this as well. The notes I just put in the Zoom chat are specifically the steps 1 through 10 on how to start a transaction in Command with Docusign. So while this is a new process, you know, I mean, even if you feel comfortable with Docusign, right? This is all kind of a newer process for us. You know, these steps 1 through 10, you can print this out, have it on your desk to kind of walk you through. This will specifically give you steps to start a transaction in Command with Docusign. Okay, so I'm going to overview that with you now. I'm basically just going to overview these steps real quick, and so we can go ahead and get into Docusign because that's where we're really going to be focusing today. And Robert, how do you find your Market Center number? You can locate that on the very top right if you log into mykw.kw.com. Your Market Center number will be on the very top right of your MyKW account on the red toolbar. If you have any trouble finding that, shoot us an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com. Just let us know which Market Center you're a part of, and we can look that up for you as well. Okay, so quickly overviewing these steps to start a transaction in Command with Docusign. First thing that we always do when we start a transaction is the contact has to be in your Command database. Okay, the reason that is because Docusign will pull all of your contact information from Command directly to autofill on all your forms. Okay, so Docusign is essentially using the Command database to autofill your client's contact information onto every single form you bring into your room, which is awesome. It's a great time saver. So that being said, the first step will always be making sure that your contact's in your database first. So if you need to add the contacts, you can on the top right here, or of course you can search on the top left if you have that contact already entered in. I think I taught a class with James Bond last, so I think I'll do James Bond since that new movie's out. All right, so once you add that contact in, right, very important, you first add the contact in, you can then create the opportunity. Now, if you're newer to the word opportunity, that probably sounds like, what are you even talking about, right? And just to make sense of what an opportunity is, right, you are creating an opportunity every single time you start a transaction in Command. Really, anytime you get a new lead or a new opportunity for a closing or an opportunity for a sale, right, that's when you would create an opportunity. Kind of just as corny as it sounds. But again, adding the contact will be step 1, and then creating the opportunity will be step 2. Now you can create opportunities in Command a couple different ways. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you from the contact record itself. However, please just note that on the left-hand side where my mouse is circling, that'll be your opportunities dashboard. And that'll give you the option to create new opportunities on the top right of that page as well. There's a couple different ways you can do it. So again, either from that handshake icon on the left-hand side menu, you click there, you'll see the option to create opportunity on the top right. Or I prefer to actually look up my contact. So I open the contact record. Okay, so you open the contact up. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the opportunities option. Okay, so you can always look up your opportunities and create opportunities from the contact itself. I would recommend that because it does bring in some information when you go to click create opportunity, which I'll show you. But it also allows you to see if you already created an opportunity for this client, right? You don't need to be creating multiple unless, let's talk about when we would create separate opportunities for a client. All right, so you are creating an opportunity per transaction that you sell, okay, per property that you sell. So if you're representing the client who is selling their home with you and then buying the next home, that would be two separate opportunities. It'll be two separate Docusign rooms because that is two separate properties. Okay, so again, if you're representing a client who's buying, or I'm sorry, selling their home and then buying with you, it'll be two separate opportunities that you're creating. If you have any questions on, when to be creating opportunities or specific situations, feel free to drop that in the chat. I'd be happy to kind of brainstorm that with you guys if you have any questions on when to be creating opportunities for clients. So again, on the top right of that contact record, we'll see opportunities and we'll see the option to create opportunity. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you guys the three main fields that we have to fill out to continue. Again, I go into this in detail in the Docusign 101 class, so feel free to check that out. The three main fields I really have to pay attention to move forward. Opportunity type will be the first one. So make sure you're selecting, is this a listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant? You're determining which pipeline you're putting your opportunity on. Okay, outside from that, and you can pick either one. I'm going to do a listing opportunity just to show you guys a few things, but the buyer and listing opportunities are really the exact same. All right, so that was the first field, opportunity type, that we have to do something with. Second field, this client field, you will already see your client populate, right, since we created the opportunity from the contact record itself. Right, but if you need to go ahead and add in a co-seller, you can do that right from here. Okay, now that co-seller, again, same concept, would need to be in your contact database first to be able to add them to the transaction. So that's why I was really harping on adding your clients to your database first before creating the opportunity. So again, if there's a spouse, you can go ahead and add them right here, but they need to already be in your database. All right, final field we have to fill out is that commission rate field on the bottom, and that is just talking about your side of the transaction, by the way. That is not talking about the full 6%. That's just talking about your 3% or whatever you usually charge. And just a heads up, that is changeable. So, if they haggle you down to 2.5, like they irritatingly like to do, you can always update that in the future. So I would just put what you normally charge here and click create. All right, so we created the contact. We now created the opportunity, right? That was the next step. So now to get into Docusign, we're just going to go ahead and click on the opportunity name. And click on the Documents tab. Okay, so whenever you are starting, it's just so important. So I know I sound like a broken record, but anytime you are starting a transaction for the first time, it is so important that you do the steps we just did to add the contact record, add the opportunity, and then don't do this quite yet, if you can hold off, and then click start a transaction to actually start the Docusign room from here. So don't do that yet. If you don't mind, I'm going to show you one more new feature that they launched. However, by clicking start a transaction, which again, don't, that will start your Docusign room, and it will link your Docusign room to your opportunity, which helps the opportunity autofill over to Docusign and allows you to bring your sign forms over to your opportunity. So there's a lot of really big benefits that you want to be taking with this specific workflow. Okay, so again, we added that contact, we created the opportunity, and then again, don't do it right now, please, but then we would click start a transaction to start that Docusign room, and that would link everything together with that specific workflow. Okay, if you try to create the room directly in Docusign, there's just no way to link that back to the opportunity. So it's really important that you start the transaction this way, is after you start the transaction. So once you do these steps, right, you can always go to Docusign directly. I'm going to put this in the chat. It's realestate.docusign.com. Okay, so it's not docusign.com. We use the KW room side of Docusign, so the real estate specific side of Docusign. So I'd recommend writing down that URL in the chat. It's just realestate.docusign.com. All right, so after you start the transaction from command, you can always go to realestate.docusign.com directly to access your rooms there on out. You just need to make sure you're starting the transaction in command with Docusign. All right, let me know if you have any questions on how that workflow works. It's just probably one of the most important things that you guys understand. Now, I did mention that a brand new feature rolled out, I want to say within the last month, 2 months. All my days are kind of running together, so it might be a little longer, but KWRI has now added the feature to allow for forms to automatically pull into your Docusign room without you having to go find them. And this is a brand new feature, so this depends on if your market center has set this feature up quite yet, but let's take a look. I'll tell you how to tell. So from the Documents tab, okay, so where I am, just in case I lost anyone, I created my opportunity and simply click on the opportunity name and it will open. So wherever you are in command currently, if you're lost, if you can navigate to your opportunity and click on the opportunity name, and then we're clicking on the Documents tab from our opportunity. So if you're just joining us now, we are just in the Documents tab of our opportunity. You can navigate to a practice opportunity to get here. All right, and on the left-hand side, we have this Pick Checklist Type option. Okay, and yours might not say this, just a heads up. So it may say Pick Checklist Type, or it may already just say the checklist name, like residential or whatever the checklist name is. So either way, that's fine. However, if it says Pick Checklist, let's go ahead and select that from the dropdown. Now, your market center staff is who creates these checklists, and these checklists are created to tell you which forms are required for you to submit and get signed in order to essentially receive your commission check at the end of the day. Okay. So that's why you have these checklists right here. These are not the blank forms themselves. We'll be accessing the blank forms themselves in Docusign directly. However, these are your checklists that your office staff creates to tell you which forms you need to stay in compliance. Now, this really cool brand new feature that Docusign and KWRI has launched is this right here. So you can see if you have it, you'll want to look to see if any of your document names have this teal DS to the left of it. Okay, this is something that your market center staff sets up. Okay, so if you don't have any of those teal DSs, nothing's wrong with your account. Your office is just working on setting that up. But any of these forms that have that teal DS mean that when I click Start a Transaction and go into Docusign, Docusign is going to automatically pull in all those forms with that teal DS. I won't have to go look for them. They'll just automatically be in your Docusign room, which is super cool. Now, if you are office staff on this call and you want to know how to set this up for your market center, if you don't mind shooting me an email after today's class, I'd be happy to send you steps. I'm putting in the chat my email, support@scottlerymarketing.com, and then you can just put attention, my name in the subject line, which is Leah, L-E-A-H. All right, so, but let me show you now how this works in real life. So I'm going to now click Start a Transaction, okay, to show you how these forms pull in. But what was so important about the workflow that I just showed you guys here is that I picked the checklist first before clicking Start a Transaction. All right, so if you're taking notes on today's class, I'm going to try to mention the noteworthy moments. This is one of them. So especially if you see these teal DSs, okay, so you want to add in your workflow that when you create an opportunity for the first time, that you always pick the checklist first, so Docusign knows which forms to bring in automatically when you start your transaction. Just let me know if you have any questions on that process, guys. I know some of you might not be seeing that feature quite yet. Again, it's brand new. Your offices are just working on rolling that out. And no worries, you can always manually grab your forms too. So now it's the moment we've been waiting for. We're clicking Start a Transaction, and I have both Docusign and Docusign and .loop linked. If you only have Docusign linked, it should just take you directly to Docusign when you click on Start a Transaction. All right, and it will prompt you to log into your Docusign account the first time each day for security purposes. So Docusign is one of those logins and passwords you'll have to remember. Right? I know for me, I feel like I have 9 million passwords, but Docusign is one to remember. So if you have like a note in your phone with your passwords or an app that you store those on, make sure you add your Docusign login. And feel free to take your time as you're getting into your Docusign room here, but just to explain what you're seeing on my screen, I see 5 forms already automatically added to my Docusign room without me having to go find it. And the reason that happened is because I picked the checklist name first, which automatically brought any of those form names with that teal DS next to it into my Docusign room. Okay, so really it's just a nice time saver because of course we can at this point come up to add on the top right to add more Docusign forms to pull those in, right? However, this is just a time saver where it already pulls in my forms, so I don't have to go hunting for them. All right, but if your command in Docusign doesn't have that feature quite yet, no worries at all, guys. You can just come up to add on the top right to access your forms from Docusign Forms right here. And that will give you the option, of course, to access your forms from your listing or depending on the group on the left-hand side, which is set up by your office as well. So you'll see form groups and libraries here. Marty, if you don't mind letting me know what state you live in, I can let you know how you get your forms in here. So if your forms are showing like no access, for example, your NERDS ID will typically need to be entered in. Let me check on New Jersey. I believe New Jersey, you also need your NERDS ID to be entered in. Let me check on that real quick. So typically in order to get your forms, so especially if you're seeing no access next to a lot of your forms or under libraries, you're not seeing the correct states for the memberships that you have or like where you're licensed in. I'm just pulling up. So if that's the case, right, your NERDS ID just needs to be entered into command, into Docusign, I mean. So I'm going to send you guys a tip here on how to do that. And I'll show you too. Just looking that up for New Jersey real quick. Okay, yes, New Jersey, you need your NERDS ID entered in. That's why. I'm in here. Let me share this with you as well. This is on the notes that I sent you guys, but I'm going to share this out directly. If you are unsure if you need to enter your NERDS ID into command, or into Docusign, sorry, I do have a spreadsheet that tells you if your state requires it or not. Okay, so I just put this in the chat. So again, if you're seeing no access next to your forms, if you want to open this up, that'll show you if yes or no, you need your NERDS ID to be entered into Docusign to access your forms. And I'll show you where to do that real quick. All right, but I would recommend, oh, whoops, I sent that in the waiting room. Guys. Let me send that back in the chat. And all right, now you should have that in the chat. Sorry about that. This will show you by state if you do need to enter your NERDS ID in. So pull that up, find the state you're a part of, and I'll show you how to enter that in. If you do not, if it says an N for no, your forms are accessed a slightly different way. Like California agents, your forms are accessed through zip forms. For example, if you have questions on your state specifically, feel free to shoot us an email. You know, if you have any trouble with your forms, that's what I'm here for. I specialize in all the Docusign stuff. So if you ever have an issue with your form, shoot me an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com. Attention, my name, which is Leah, L-E-A-H, and I'll add that in the chat as well. But just to quickly overview how to add your NERDS ID in, this will just take a couple seconds. So if your forms are available, just hold tight. It'll just take a couple seconds here. But to add your NERDS ID in, we do need to click on your headshot or initial on the top right of Docusign. And click on preferences. and then integrations on the left-hand side. I'll say this again. And add provider. Okay, my NAR number is already entered in, as I can see here. All right, but again, how we get to this section is headshot or initials in a circle on the top right. Preferences. Integrations. And typically adding your provider here, it'll give you the option for the Realtor Association if you don't have that already entered in. So you just click on that, and then you'll put in your NERDS ID and the association you're part of. If it gives you any trouble, guys, we're more than happy to help you with that. You won't really need that for today's class. So if it gives you any trouble, if you want to pull your hair out, just jot down to shoot me an email, I'll do it for you. I'll put my email in the chat again for you guys. All right, so let's come on back to our DocuSign room if you navigated away with me like that. I'm going to come on back to my DocuSign room by clicking on the dashboard option on the very top white toolbar. Just get back to my DocuSign room here. And as far as the forms we've been talking about so far, those are all of your interactive forms. So what I mean by that, I'm in the Documents tab of my DocuSign room. If I lost anyone in that, let me know. I know it was a little fast. But these are also, you'll notice these icons. These icons really come into play. By understanding these icons, you'll really be able to mentally separate what forms do what. So this blue icon here is the same icon that you'll see when you click on Add next to Docusign Forms. That blue icon means that these are all your fillable forms. So if I were to click on any of these forms with that blue icon, it would allow me to simply just click to start typing in this form. Okay, so that's what I mean by interactive form. All right, so you can see here, right, a lot of my information is auto-filling, right? The client's information auto-filled from command. My information as the agent and my brokerage information auto-fills from the white pages. But outside of that, filling out these forms, as you guys are hopefully a little used to, is pretty intuitive here, right? It's as simple as clicking to start typing. Any information you add on this form, so let's say if I add in the street address here on this form, it will autofill onto all of my other forms I create in this DocuSign room as well, which is pretty cool. So essentially updating one form or editing info on one form will update that on all of your forms, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so these are your interactive forms. I just want to show you the difference because we're going to work on PDFs in today's class, editing PDFs. But first, before we jump into PDFs, I want to walk you through how to create templates from these interactive forms. All right, so semi-new feature within the last 6 months to a year. I know that's fake, but you can now create templates from your interactive board forms. So the point of this would be to autofill in any information that you generally put on all listing agreements, for example, right? Then what you can do is pull in that half filled out listing agreement, right? Or that pre-filled listing agreement into your next DocuSign room. And that'll save you time so you don't have to fill in that information. Okay, so let me show you again how to pre-fill these templates to allow you to pull those in for future transactions. Okay, so first let's talk about how to create these templates. So if you could follow me by clicking on My Docs in the very top white toolbar. So My Docs on the very top white toolbar. And then on the toolbar under that, you'll see Form Templates. And just in case I lost anyone, I think I can send you guys this link. Just in case you're lost or just want to click and be exactly where I am, I believe if you click the link in the chat I just dropped, that would allow you to go straight to, where I am here, My Docs, Form Templates. Of course, yours will probably be blank if you haven't created any templates quite yet. This section will most likely be blank. But let's change that by clicking Create Form Template. So again, if you're lost at all, feel free to click that link in the chat and then click Create Form Template on the top right, and you should be right back to where we are. Okay, So now we're doing two simple things here. We're first selecting if we're pulling the form from a certain group or library. So the difference is, right, your Docusign groups would separate that down to listing. These are created by your office staff, so yours will look different. But if you select the form groups, that'll show the different groups that you might have saw when adding your interactive forms. Versus if you change that top drop down to your libraries, just a heads up, it would show you, like your MLS forms, any association forms, your market center forms, etc. So depending on what you're looking to make a template out of, I personally like to search through my groups because I think it makes it a little easier to find. So I'm going to leave the top drop down on Docusign form group, select the group name, and then I'll see all forms in that specific group. So I can go ahead and select one to pull that in to create a template from. Then select it with the dot on the left-hand side and click use. And that will pull up kind of what we were just seeing, right? How you can just simply click to start typing in fields, right? But what we're creating here is a template that you can pull into all future transactions, all future Docusign rooms that has some of the information already filled out to help save you time. Okay, so especially if there are certain, check boxes or radio dots that you always select on a listing agreement, for example. Or, your brokerage information will be on every listing agreement. I could go ahead and enter that in here. If the case is that you write an A in a certain field, every time that you fill out a listing agreement, you can go ahead and pre-fill those, right? Anything that you would just typically do, and you can create multiple versions of this template, which is cool. So for example, if I wanted to create a template of this form here for, cash deals, and I also want a template for this form for finance deals, I can absolutely do that, and I'll show you how. So what you can do here, so again, I know this isn't a whole lot of time to go through and, actually set up this template, but if you can just make notes on how you're getting here so you can come back and finish this. And you'll want to edit the name as well on the top left. So I always forget to do this. So if you can click on the name or the pencil icon on the top left, you don't have to change the name, but I generally like to so I can tell the difference between my templates, especially if I want to name this one, if this is for cash deals or, finance deals or whatever the case may be that you are setting up this template, you can go ahead and add that. Maybe I just want it to be listing agreement. Yes, if you are coming in just now or anything or have to leave early, I will share momentarily here how to watch this class again recorded. So hang tight to that. All right, so we edited the name on the top left by clicking that pencil icon, and then we can simply click Save and Close on the top right. And that will take you back to all of your templates here. And again, I know you probably only have one here, and that's perfectly fine, but you should see the one that you just added in. So here's that one I just added in. And in the future here, I can come in and edit this at any time. So if you just started and added in a couple fields, this is how you'll go back and finish it by clicking Edit. The drop-down menu here will allow you to copy or delete it as well. Okay, the reason I point this out is if you click on the copy option, that will make a copy of the template. So especially if you're trying to make, a template for a listing agreement for cash deals and then a separate template for finance deals, right? Where most of it's the same on the form, but just some things need to change. You can actually copy an entire template. So that would copy everything, all the work that you did for this template, and create just a copy of that so you can tweak a few things and save that next template. Okay, so really cool feature here. And now I'm going to show you how to actually apply these templates to your Docusign rooms. And again, if you are coming, I'm just going to share where you can watch this class recorded too. In the chat real quick, I'm going to reshare the notes just for anyone coming in or if you need to leave. So I just shared the notes again in the chat. So just a reminder, if you need to leave or you're just coming in and want to watch this recorded. The Docusign 201, this is from last month, of course, but after today's class, it usually takes about 4 hours for this to upload, and then I'll replace this link with the new date, and that will be the recorded class. Also, just so you guys have it, if you scroll down, just so you note that I do have a bunch of tip videos that I'll be pointing these out more towards the end of class. But, different things like we just talked about, right? This new feature of creating templates in Command or in Docusign. This is a 10-minute tip video on how to do that if you want to follow along with the tip video and pause it. So you'll see a bunch of different things. I did highlight the ones that I would recommend watching next, just to let you guys know that's on here. And last but not least on here, I also wanted to show you our YouTube channels on the very bottom, and that will give you all of our latest trainings as well. So this YouTube channel on the bottom, it's just youtube.com/ScottLeroy-marketing. But I just want to show you because of the question, how do you watch this after today's class? All of our newest classes are right here. So you'll always have this week's classes, this week's newest tip videos right at the top here. And if you have any questions on that, of course, you know what to do. Drop in the Zoom chat, shoot me an email, happy to help. All right, so now that we learned how to create these templates, let's go ahead and apply these templates to our Docusign room. Okay, because again, right, we created these form templates under My Docs on the top white toolbar, and then Form Templates right under that, right? And this is where we click to create form template, just a reminder. But now let's look at applying these templates to your Docusign room. So I'm going to navigate back to that Docusign room that I'm working on in today's class. To do that, you can either click the dashboard to get to your 5 most recent rooms, or of course, the rooms option will show you all your rooms and you can search through them. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that Docusign room and go back to the Documents tab. Okay, usually when you open a room in Docusign, it takes you the details first, which is great. This is where everything autofills from, but we generally spend time in the Documents tab. All right, so applying these templates. Now there's 2 ways to do this. One, if you have not added the form at all into your room, I'm going to show you how to add the template. The second way is if the form is already in your room, like this one, automatically pulled in, how to apply a template to that one. So first of all, how you apply any templates to, if they're not currently in your room, so if you don't have that form in your room yet, you can come up to Add, then Docusign Forms, right? Because that blue icon means that the form is fillable. So that's the one we want. So Add, Docusign Forms. And then you can search for the form as normal. So you can locate the form as you normally would from your groups on the left-hand side. But you'll notice if the form has a template with it or created from it, when I click these check boxes, right? This is a good example. I check these 2 to bring in. One shows me a drop-down menu because I have templates created from that specific form. So any forms that you have templates created from, when you're pulling that into your Docusign room, if there's a template associated with that form, you'll have a drop-down that allows you to select the actual template that you would like to apply. So now when I click Add Selected, it will not add a blank version of this form. It'll add this form with this template applied. Add Selected, and it would add that in. Okay, so that's one way that you can add your templates in, and that's by, again, clicking on Add on the top right of your Docusign room to access those Docusign forms. Again, if you just click the checkbox, it'll show you if you have a template created from that form by indicating that drop-down menu you can pick from. Now, especially with this new feature coming in, or coming out rather, that automatically adds your forms to the Docusign room, like I showed you today. If your form is already in your Docusign room, you can simply right-click on the form and click Apply Form Template. And this option, this Apply Form Template, is only here for the forms that you have a template created. So for example, I don't have a template created for this form. So you can see I don't even have that option from the list. So it has to be that you right click on a form that has templates associated to it. Then you'll have the option to apply form template here. This is showing me my current template, so I can go ahead and select that and apply. I'll apply that template right away. So pretty cool feature in Docusign. If you guys have any questions on that, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help answer that. But that really can help expedite your processes in Docusign and getting your forms filled out and signed by your clients. All right, so the next thing that we're going to go over is I would like to take you through editing PDFs in Docusign. So this will really come into play. So this is not something I cover in the Docusign 101 video, really. So editing PDFs in Docusign. Now, as I've been showing you, all these forms I've been opening, they're automatically fillable, right? So I can just open it and start typing it in. By nature, a PDF is not fillable. It's not editable. Okay, so your signed forms in Docusign will be PDFs, and we'll talk about managing signed forms with Docusign next. So this tip will come in handy for your signed forms in Docusign, as well as, let's say the agent on the other side, just emails you the form. It's attached to an email, it's a PDF, it's signed by their clients, and you now need to add that PDF to your Docusign room so you can send that to your clients for electronic signature. Okay, so that's the situation we're talking about here. So you have a PDF version of the form that you were sent. However, you need to edit some information on that PDF and send that to your client to electronically sign that. All right, so first thing that we do is we click on Add on the top right. So we're adding PDF to a Docusign room. You can add on the top right of the Documents tab of your room. And then we're clicking on Computer. Okay, so in this situation, especially for the example I gave you, if the form was emailed to you and, it was sent by the agent on the other side via email, attached as a PDF to that email, you would then want to save that to your computer. And so I already saved it to my computer, so I can double click in my files to pull that up. And this is where we see a first change in the icons. There will be more. All right, so this PDF icon here that does show you quickly which forms are fillable in your Docusign room and which are PDFs, meaning they're not fillable. Okay, because PDFs work differently in Docusign than your fillable forms, and I'll show you how just now. All right, so by nature, if I click on this PDF to open it, right, there are no fields for me to click to start typing, right? So if I need to make edits to that, or let's say it's been signed by the buyer and I need to send this to my seller to sign, or vice versa. All right, here's how you would make edits to a PDF. So first thing we want to do, so as I've pulled up the form, I'm going to come up to Document Actions on the top right. That'll be the icon of a little folded sheet of paper. And we're going to create envelope. And since you guys have been using Docusign for a little, right, you probably know that you can create envelopes in a couple different ways, and that's totally fine. However you want to create the envelope works. And in this case, I brought up the form in my Docusign room, selecting Document Actions on the top right to create the envelope. Okay, and creating the envelope is the first step that you do to actually send the form, right? Which makes complete sense if you think of like snail mail, for example. What would be the first thing you would do if you wanted to send a form in the mail? I would grab an envelope. So that's always the first step. We create an envelope. Second step, we add documents to the envelope. That's already done, right? You can add further docs to your room under room docs here if you'd like to, or even upload a PDF, another PDF if need be, just a heads up. Okay. Still channeling snail mail here. Third thing I'd usually do is probably add recipients to the front of the envelope. So here I would come to add recipients. This might look a little different than you're used to. Okay, with PDFs, it'll only give you these two options. That's totally fine, but you'll always want to select the first option. So the room participants will just give you access to pulling in the clients that are currently in your command account, right, associated with this transaction. So from here, you're clicking on Add Recipients to go ahead and add your clients to this Docusign room, and click Add Selected. Now, let's talk about when you would add yourself as the agent, right? You do not need to add yourself as a recipient unless it's a form that you need to sign. Okay? So if it's like a listing agreement or buyer agency, for example, that's typically something you need to sign. Of course, that depends on your area. However, if it's like an offer to purchase, for example, generally the agent wouldn't sign that. So you don't need to add yourself as a recipient. And again, that's my area. If that's a little different in your area, that's totally fine. But what I want to show you, an extra tip here is, before we continue, is how to notify your admin or transaction coordinator that the form has been signed as well. So if you want to add your, let's say, admin or transaction coordinator to the envelope, you can make it so that Docusign will automatically send your admin or the mortgage provider, for example, the executed copy of the form after your clients have signed it. So let me show you how you would set that up. Okay, so I'm going to click on Add Recipient one more time here. But I'm actually going to click Email Address instead. So instead of the room participants, right, because that's mainly like my clients or agents in this room, I'm going to click Email Address to add, let's say, my transaction coordinator, the mortgage provider, my admin, whoever I want to receive an executed copy of the form once it's been signed by my clients. So I'm putting in the name and email. Okay, and this is where things really get interesting. All right, so you'll see these numbers on the left-hand side. So something Dotloop didn't have. I do like this feature. Okay, if you leave them all as a 1, that means when you send the form, they'll all receive it at the exact same time. All right, but in this case, I want my clients to receive it first, and then I want my transaction coordinator to receive it second after my clients have signed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is change my transaction coordinator to a 2. So she won't receive the form until after the clients who are marked with a 1 have completed their signing activity. There's one more thing we need to change, right? Your transaction coordinator, whoever it is that you're wanting to receive a copy of this form, doesn't need to sign it per se, typically. So we'll want to change that from needs to sign to just receives a copy. Okay, in case you're wondering the difference between needs to view and receives a copy, because I wondered that for a long time. The difference is, first of all, you'll want to pick receives a copy. You can tell where my brain is. Receives a copy. The needs to view option will not let the signed form come back to your Docusign room until this transaction coordinator has also viewed it. So I would just mark it as receives a copy so it does not affect you receiving the signed form back. All right, so we have our clients marked as a 1, transaction coordinator marked as a 2. So now after the people marked with a 1, they'll receive the form at the same time and they'll be prompted to sign in their email inbox. And then after they're done with that, the person with the 2 here will receive a copy. So pretty cool feature there. I would recommend taking advantage of that as well. If you have any questions, just let me know. And I'm going to click on Next on the top right. And that will take me into my envelope where I can view and edit the form. Now, the tips that I share with you here will be the same tips to edit signed forms that come back in Docusign. That's what I'm going to talk about next. So if you can just kind of store this in your brain for both situations, I'll of course tie this all together for you, how it works. Okay, but by nature, right, a PDF, I cannot click to start typing. So on the left-hand side, right, this is where I have my options to add text fields, signature fields, initial fields, and so forth. So if you're working with a fillable form, remember I kept harping on the icons in your room. So those blue icons marking it a fillable field, or a fillable form rather, an interactive form you can open and start typing in. Those kind of forms will automatically show initial and signature fields on the form at this point. So if it's a fillable form, you do not have to manually add initial or signature boxes to the form. However, if it's a PDF, you do. So if it's a PDF, you do have to manually add the initial fields for your clients to sign. And so on the left-hand side here, first of all, let's take note of the drop-down on the top left. That will show you the 2 clients that you're working with, or however many. And you'll see a corresponding color to the left of them. Now, when I switch to that corresponding client and color, you'll see that all the fields under it also change to reflect that color. Okay, so let me show you how this comes into play now. So once I select the client I need to lay an initial box for, let's say, I can go ahead and click the initial field. It follows my mouse. So I can just simply line that up to click to drop it. Okay, but now to have my other client sign here, I need to switch their name first on the top left, right? Because I need that to be a yellow field to indicate that this client can initial that. So I change it first over to the corresponding color, corresponding client name, click initials, line that up, and click to drop it. So in theory, at this point, you would need to add those initial boxes to the bottom of every page, okay? And of course, you can do that manually by clicking initial to go ahead and drop that, and then changing your client to lay the other one. However, that's a little time consuming, right, for PDFs. So let me show you a shortcut. But of course, you can manually add these all the way down the form, especially if it's a shorter form. However, if you want a shortcut on how to copy and paste these all the way down your form, this is just a quick shortcut. This is a little more advanced. So you don't have to use this feature. However, if you want to copy and paste any fields, what I can do is click and hold my mouse and drag that around the 2 fields I want to copy. So click and hold and like kind of draw a rectangle around the fields you want to copy, and you'll see it turns them both blue. Right, it shows them selected. So now on my keyboard, I'm going to click Control C as in cat, or if you have a Mac, it's Command C to copy. So the shortcut for copying is Control C as in cat or copy, or Command C if you have a Mac. And that will copy the selected fields here. So I can scroll down on my form and click wherever I want to paste them now. So I'm going to kind of click around here. And then we'll do Control V as in Victor, or Command V as in Victor to actually drop that. No, oh, it's not playing nice. Hold on. This doesn't. Oh, here they are. That's what always happens to me. So if you were doing what I was, where it wasn't appearing and wondering why, right, that was dropping on my next page here. So no worries, right? You can actually move these fields together too. So you can delete any of them. So if you did what I did, of course you can delete any of these fields that you are adding in, right? You can also move them around. So especially if it lays it weird, right? If it lays it a little off center, no worries, you can just pull that back over. Okay, so again, let's see if we can get this to play a little nicer here. So there we go. So yeah, I think it was because I had part of the other page showing. But if you come to the bottom of the page, scroll up slightly, you'll be able to paste that in on the next page and keep going down. So I can go through Command V as in Victor, or Control V as in Victor. So again, copy is Control C and paste is Control V. Just replace Control with Command if you're a Mac user like me. All right, so that's how you can copy and paste the initial fields down your form here for PDF specifically. Again, on interactive forms that are fillable, this will not be necessary, but this really comes in handy for editing PDFs because you will run into that, especially if the agent emails you the form on the other side. Now, quickly, as far as signatures go, same concept here. There is one slight thing you'll need to know for signature fields. So when you're laying signature fields here, So same concept, right? I'm grabbing that signature field, laying that down. I do need to switch to the other client in order to lay that signature field, but there's one extra thing you need to add. So if you're adding signature fields, this would be a noteworthy moment. You also need to add the date signed field. Okay, this is something that automatically is done on your fillable forms. It's something that when your client goes to sign, it automatically adds the date, as long as you as the agent add that date signed field manually. And that's only for PDFs, okay? So I'm adding the signature for the other client and also that date signed field, right? Because for compliance, of course, you need your signatures dated, but in order for that to happen, you need to have that date signed field. Again, this is something that automatically happens with your interactive forms once you can just start filling in, something that you need to do manually if you're adding signature fields to a PDF. All right, and last thing on editing PDFs. So we've talked so far about editing the form as far as if your client needs to sign or if your client needs to fill out a text box, right? You can add that as well. So if it's like a field like personal property conveying or whatever the case may be, that your client needs to fill that out, you can go ahead and add a text field, edit that as needed to allow your client to actually fill in that field, okay? And you'll notice because it's blue, right, because it's that client's corresponding color, they will be forced to fill that in as they go through and fill out the form. Alexandra, can you expand on that question, how you turn off the timestamp format? Are you asking how to change your time zone in Docusign? Gotcha. The time zone in Docusign is changed from your Docusign profile preferences. I have a tip video on how to change that. I'll shoot over at the end of class, or if you want to shoot me an email, I'm more than happy to help you with that. I'll grab you a tip video on that though, Alexandra. Okay, so this is how we would add, right, text fields if it's a field that your client needs to fill out, right? However, if it's a field that you just need to fill out as the agent, this is a newer feature. On the left-hand side, we now have pre-filled tools that are meant to be agent fields, okay? And you can see they're gray, right? They're not a corresponding client color here. They're all gray, meaning that you as the agent can fill that out. So if you need to add a text field or a strike through, for example, something that might come into play with editing sign forms, right? If you click the line option, that will allow you to strike through on the form, especially let's say if they added in, I don't know, the client's name wrong or whatever the case may be, we can add that line. And again, where these are, it's on the gray toolbar on the far left, those pre-fill tools here. And that's where I have my strike through. So I could strike through any incorrect information, add a text box as the agent to go ahead and put in the correct name. So again, just to overview that real quick, if it is a field that you need to fill out as the agent, that will be your pre-filled tools on the left-hand side. So it's kind of that pencil icon on the very far left gray toolbar. However, if these are fields that you need your client to fill out, those will be under your standard fields. So it's really the first and last icons that you'll want to focus on. The first icon on the very left gray toolbar here, that'll be all for your client, depending on which client you have selected. And then the agent fields are the very bottom icon. And these are all for you to fill out so both clients can see that. And then we click send. Great question, Rosalie. Can this be done on an app on your iPhone? Great question. So as far as there is not currently a mobile app that is compatible with the KW Room side of Docusign. However, with that being said, you can just go, if you have an iPhone, you can go to the Safari app, so your internet browser. I forget what Androids have, probably Google browser would make sense. You can go to your browser and just go to realestate.docusign.com. I'm putting that again in the chat. That would be the most effective way to do all of this on your phone, by just pulling up your phone's browser and going to realestate.docusign.com. if you search your app store, you'll find a Docusign app. However, it's just not compatible, unfortunately, with the KW Docusign room side yet. I would imagine that's something that's coming soon though. So in the meantime, that'll be a good solution for you. Okay, last thing I want to talk about in class, guys, is editing signed forms in your Docusign account. Then I'll let you free to enjoy your weekend. It's almost weekend, right? And okay, so editing signed forms, it's just really important that you guys understand how signed forms work in Docusign. So if you have less than 5 minutes to stick around, this will be a very important part of class. I'm just going to switch over to a different Docusign room that I have signed forms in, so you can just watch on my screen. Okay. Now I've been obsessing about these icons all through class, right? The blue icon, right? That means it's an interactive form. I can just start typing in. PDFs we just talked about, right? They're not fillable. However, when we bring them into the envelope, it'll allow you to add those initial and signature fields, right? Talked about those two. So here's the third and final icon, and that's your signed icon, right? We like this one. All right, so let me explain how signed forms work in Docusign, because this is different than .loop. So whenever you create the form and send it, right, that form, let's say you have 2 clients that need to sign the form. All right, you'll get a notification every single time that someone signs the form. Okay, so if you have 2 clients signing, you'll receive an email notification that client number 1 has signed, and attached to that email notification, you'll get a copy of the form, that's a PDF, signed by that one client. However, if you come back to your Docusign room, you will not see the signed version of the form until all parties have electronically signed that. So I don't want you to be confused by that. That's normal. That's how Docusign works. All right, so you will not see the signed copy of the form in your Docusign room until all parties have signed that. All right, so if just one party has signed, again, you'll get a notification via email and it'll have that form attached to it. All right, but you will not get that form back into your Docusign room specifically until all parties have signed. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can actually reshare the form if one party hasn't signed and is holding up the process. All right, you can resend the form to only that one party who hasn't signed so that you can get the fully signed form back. But before I show you that, I want to explain that it does come back whenever the signed form comes back. It comes back as a totally separate copy of the form in your Docusign room as a PDF. So what I mean by that is, for example, I have my exclusive right to sell. This is the original file, right? This is the original form. It has that blue icon, meaning I was able to type in it, and I sent that off to my clients for electronic signature in the envelope. When the form came back signed, it came back as a totally separate copy of the form with a green signed icon. So in your room, you'll always have the original version of the form with the blue forms icon. If I click on that form, it's editable. Right? I can type in, I can change it. However, once it's signed, it comes back as a totally separate, so second copy of the form, and that's now a PDF to preserve the signatures. Okay, so you can see this is a PDF, right? I can't just start typing in it because it preserves the signature. So again, once it comes back signed, it does convert it to a PDF so that you can't edit it because they didn't sign for those edits. However, if you need to make edits to a signed form in Docusign, first of all, that was on those notes I sent you guys. I'll highlight that. But it would be the same exact steps that we really went through with editing that PDF. Now, please check with your broker on how they want you to be handling signed forms in your area. Of course, there are addendums you can fill out, to edit any forms. However, you can actually make changes to the signed form itself by the same steps we did with that PDF, right? Clicking document actions and coming to create envelope. That'll pull the form, the signed form, into an envelope so you can add a strike through the text boxes. And of course, if you make changes to a signed form, typically you would need to add initial boxes for all parties to sign for that change, of course. Check with your broker on best practices, what they want you to do on that. But I do have, just on the notes, just so you guys know, I do have steps on how to edit signed forms in Docusign as well. So if you want to watch that after. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Edit sign forms in Docusign. If you want to watch that after today's class to get a little more clarity on that, feel free. And again, I did highlight the classes these are just 10-minute tip videos. I did highlight the 10-minute tip videos that I would recommend watching next, that would really expand on your knowledge on today's class. So if you guys have any questions as you're going through all of this, I absolutely know Docusign is a lot of information to learn. If you have roadblocks, I probably have them too and can help walk you through best practices. So shoot me an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com. Attention, my name, which is Leah, and I'm more than happy to help you through this. I am going to stick around to answer any questions that came in. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Again, if you watch today's class recorded, the notes will be in the YouTube description below. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Hope this helps. I hope you have a great rest of your day.